The blood-red sunset painted the vast Wyoming sky as Beau Mitchell gritted his teeth against the searing pain that radiated from his left shoulder down to his fingertips. His horse, Whiskey, a spirited Mustang with a coat the color of burnished copper, shifted impatiently beneath the half-fastened saddle. Beau had been trying to tighten the cinch for nearly 10 minutes, but each time he lifted his arm, white-hot agony shot through his injured shoulder, leaving him breathless and cursing. "Damn you to hell," he muttered, though his anger wasn't directed at the horse but at the bullet wound that had made even the simplest tasks a torment. 3 days ago, he'd been ambushed by a pair of outlaws just north of Laramie. He'd managed to drive them off, but not before one of them had put a bullet through his shoulder. The year was 1885, and the Wyoming territory was still wild enough that a man traveling alone was considered fair game by those who lived outside the law. Beau had been drifting westward for almost 2 years now, ever since the cattle ranch he'd worked on in Texas had been sold. At 32, he was beginning to wonder if this rootless existence was all life had in store for him. Whiskey snorted and pawed at the ground, eager to be moving. The sun would be completely down soon, and Beau knew he needed to reach the town of Silver Creek before nightfall. He'd heard there was a doctor there who might be able to properly tend to his wound. "Easy, boy," Beau muttered, wiping sweat from his brow with his good arm. "Just give me another minute. You'll be giving yourself a lot more than a minute of trouble if you keep straining that shoulder," came a woman's voice from behind him. Beau spun around, his right hand instinctively reaching for the Colt revolver at his hip, but he stopped when he saw her. Standing at the edge of the clearing was a woman with copper-colored hair that matched his horse's coat almost perfectly. She wore a simple brown riding skirt and a cream-colored blouse, with a leather medical bag clutched in one hand. Her green eyes regarded him with a mix of concern and amusement. "Madam," Beau acknowledged, touching the brim of his hat, "didn't realize I had company." "Clearly," she said, taking a few steps closer. "I was gathering herbs along the creek when I heard you cursing. That shoulder needs attention from someone other than yourself." "I appreciate your concern, but I'll manage," Beau replied, turning back to his saddle. The movement sent another bolt of pain through his shoulder, making him wince visibly. "I'm Jessie Lawson," she said, ignoring his dismissal. "I'm the doctor in Silver Creek." Beau raised his eyebrows. "You're the doctor. Don't look so surprised, Mr. Mitchell, Beau Mitchell." "Well, Mr. Mitchell, yes, I am the doctor. Graduated from the Women's Medical College of Pennsylvania 3 years ago. Now, are you going to let me look at that shoulder, or would you prefer to continue this stubborn display until you pass out from pain or infection?" Despite his discomfort, Beau couldn't help but smile at her directness. "I was actually headed to Silver Creek to find you, or rather to find the doctor. I didn't expect." "A woman," she finished for him. "Few do, but that doesn't make me any less capable." She set down her bag and approached him, her gaze focused on the bloodstain visible on his shirt. "How long ago were you shot?" 3 days, Beau admitted. Jessie's expression turned serious. "You should have sought help immediately. Sit down on that fallen log. I need to examine you." Beau hesitated, then nodded. He moved to the log she'd indicated and sat down heavily, suddenly aware of how exhausted he truly was. The past days had been a blur of pain and determination as he'd pushed on toward Silver Creek. Jessie knelt beside him and carefully helped him remove his vest and shirt. The wound was an angry red with signs of infection beginning to show. She clicked her tongue disapprovingly. "The bullet went clean through, which is fortunate, but this is getting infected. I need to clean it properly and dress it." She glanced up at the darkening sky. "It'll be night soon." "My cabin is about a mile from here. Can you ride that far?" "I can ride," Beau assured her, though in truth he wasn't entirely certain. The world had begun to tilt and sway slightly around him. "You're feverish," Jessie observed, pressing a cool hand to his forehead. "I don't think you should be riding at all, but we need to get you somewhere I can treat you properly." She stood and walked over to his horse, expertly tightening the cinch that had given him so much trouble. "I'll help you mount," she said, returning to his side. With considerable effort and more pain than he cared to admit, Beau managed to get onto Whiskey's back. Jessie collected her bag, then whistled sharply. A few moments later, a dappled gray mare trotted into the clearing. "That's some trained horse," Beau commented, impressed despite his discomfort. "Pepper and I understand each other," Jessie replied with a small smile. She mounted her horse gracefully and moved alongside him. "Follow me, Mr. Mitchell, and try not to fall off. I'd hate to have to drag you the rest of the way." The ride to Jessie's cabin seemed interminable to Beau. Each step Whiskey took sent jolts of pain through his shoulder, and the fever was making everything hazy. By the time they reached a small, neat cabin nestled among a stand of pines, Beau was barely staying upright in the saddle. Jessie quickly dismounted and came to his side. "Easy now," she said, helping him down from the horse. The moment his feet touched the ground, his knees buckled. Jessie caught him as best she could, supporting his weight against her side. "I've got you," she assured him, her voice steady and calm. "Just a few more steps." Together, they made their way into the cabin, where Jessie guided him to a narrow bed against one wall. Beau sank onto it gratefully, fighting to keep his eyes open as the room spun around him. "You're going to be fine, Mr. Mitchell," Jessie told him as she lit lamps around the cabin. "But that shoulder needs immediate attention." Through a fog of pain and fever, Beau watched as she moved efficiently around the cabin, gathering supplies and heating water on the stove. There was something reassuring about her confident movements, something that told him he was in good hands. "I need to clean the wound thoroughly," she explained as she returned to his side with a basin of steaming water and several clean cloths. "It's going to hurt, I'm afraid." "Do what you need to do, Doc," Beau said, his voice rough with pain. As Jessie began to clean the wound, Beau gritted his teeth against the agony. He'd been hurt before broken bones, knife wounds, even another bullet grazed years ago, but nothing had felt quite like this. "The infection isn't too advanced," Jessie told him as she worked. "You're lucky. A few more days without treatment, and you might have lost the arm, or worse." "Lucky," Beau echoed weakly. "That's me." After cleaning the wound, Jessie applied a pungent salve that stung fiercely at first, then began to numb the area. She wrapped his shoulder in clean bandages, her touch gentle but sure. "You need rest now," she said, helping him lie back on the bed. "And you need to stay still. That shoulder won't heal if you keep straining it." "I appreciate your help, Doc, but I can't impose," Beau protested, though his eyelids were already growing heavy. "I should get to town, find a room." "In your condition, you'd never make it," Jessie replied firmly. "You'll stay here tonight at least until the fever breaks. I'll go tend to the horses." Before Beau could argue further, she was gone, and he was left alone in the warm, lamp-lit cabin. Despite his intention to stay awake, the combination of exhaustion, pain, and the medicine Jessie had given him soon pulled him into a deep sleep. When Beau awoke, pale morning light was filtering through the cabin's windows. For a moment, he was disoriented, unsure of where he was. Then the pain in his shoulder reminded him, and he turned his head to find Jessie sitting at a small table nearby, writing in a leather-bound journal. "Morning," he said, his voice hoarse. Jessie looked up, a small smile touching her lips. "Good morning. Your fever broke during the night. How's the pain?" Beau took stock of his condition. "Better than yesterday," he admitted. "Still hurts like the devil, but clearer now. Good." "That's progress." She closed her journal and came to check his bandages. "The infection is responding to the treatment. You're going to be fine, Mr. Mitchell, but you need to give that shoulder time to heal properly." "Call me Beau," he said. "Seems only right, since you've seen me at my worst." "Hardly your worst," Jessie replied with a raised eyebrow. "I've treated men who were far more severely injured, but all right, Beau, it is. And you can drop the doc if you like. Jessie will do." As she checked his wound, Beau studied her more carefully than he'd been able to the previous evening. She was younger than he'd initially thought, probably in her mid-20s. Her features were delicate but strong, with high cheekbones and a determined set to her jaw. There was a light dusting of freckles across her nose, barely visible in the morning light. "How did a woman as young as you end up doctoring in a place like Silver Creek?" he asked. "Seems like you could have set up a practice anywhere." Jessie's hands paused briefly in their work. "My father was a doctor in Philadelphia. He taught me everything he knew from the time I was a child. When he passed away, I decided to use my training somewhere it was truly needed." She finished adjusting his bandage before continuing. There was no doctor in Silver Creek when I arrived 2 years ago. The town was desperate enough to accept me, woman or not. And now they trust me. Mostly, she smiled slightly. There are still a few old-timers who refuse to be treated by a lady doctor, but they usually come around when there's no alternative. Beau nodded, understanding. The West was changing, but slowly. Women like Jessie were still the exception rather than the rule. I need to go into town for supplies, Jessie said, gathering up her medical bag. You should rest. There's water and food on the table if you get hungry. Don't try to use that arm. I'm not much for lying around, Beau protested. Jessie fixed him with a stern look. You'll rest if I have to tie you down, Mr. Mitchell. That's not a suggestion, it's doctor's orders. Despite his discomfort, Beau couldn't help but smile at her words. Are you always this bossy with your patients? Only the stubborn ones, she replied, but there was a hint of amusement in her eyes. I'll be back in a few hours. Try to be a good patient until then. After Jessie left, Beau did try to rest, but he had never been good at an activity. After dozing fitfully for an hour, he carefully sat up, testing his limits. The pain was still there, but duller now, more manageable. He looked around the cabin, taking in details he'd been too ill to notice the night before. The space was small but well organized. Bookshelves lined one wall, filled with medical texts and other volumes. A desk in one corner held neat stacks of papers and more books. Everything spoke of an orderly, disciplined mind. But there were personal touches as well: a colorful quilt on Jessie's bed, a vase of wildflowers on the table, sketches of plants and animals pinned to one wall. This wasn't just a doctor's office, it was a home. With considerable effort, Beau managed to stand. He moved slowly to the window, looking out at the small clearing where the cabin stood. His horse, Whiskey, and Jessie's mare, Pepper, grazed contentedly in a small paddock. Beyond them, pine trees stretched up a gentle slope. It was peaceful here, far more so than the rough camps and crowded towns where he'd spent much of the past 2 years. By the time Jessie returned, Beau had managed to make his way back to the bed, though he remained sitting up, determined not to be found exactly as she'd left him. I see you couldn't follow instructions, she observed as she entered, setting down several packages and a basket. I followed the important ones, Beau defended himself. I didn't try to saddle up and ride off. Small mercies, Jessie replied dryly. She unpacked her supplies, placing jars and packets on shelves with practiced efficiency. Are you hungry? Mrs. Tompkins at the general store sent along some stew when she heard I was treating an injured cowboy. Word travels fast, Beau commented. It's a small town, Jessie explained with a shrug, and strangers are always a matter of interest, especially injured ones. As they ate the hearty stew, Jessie told Beau about Silver Creek. It had started as a mining settlement 15 years earlier, but when the silver deposits proved less plentiful than hoped, many had moved on. Those who remained had turned to ranching, farming, and supporting the stagecoach line that passed through twice weekly. It's a good place, she said. The people look after each other. And what about you? Beau asked. Do they look after their doctor? Something flickered across Jessie's face, a brief shadow that was quickly gone. They respect my work, she said after a moment. That's what matters. Beau sensed there was more to the story, but he didn't press. Everyone in the West had parts of their past they preferred not to discuss. He certainly did. What about you? Jessie asked, turning the conversation away from herself. Where are you headed once that shoulder heals? Beau considered the question. Nowhere in particular, he admitted. I've been drifting since leaving Texas. Thought I might try Montana, see if there's work on one of the big cattle outfits up there. You're a long way from Montana, Jessie observed. I'm in no hurry, Beau replied with a slight smile. The mountains will still be there when I arrive. Over the next few days, Beau remained at Jessie's cabin, his strength gradually returning as the infection cleared and his wound began to heal. True to her word, Jessie insisted he rest, though she stopped short of actually tying him down. Instead, she gave him tasks that wouldn't strain his injury, shelling peas for dinner, sorting her collection of dried herbs, even reading aloud from one of her books while she prepared medicines for her patients in town. On the 4th day, Beau was sitting on the cabin's small porch, watching the afternoon sun filter through the pines when Jessie rode up on Pepper. She looked tired, he noticed, and there was tension in her shoulders as she dismounted. "Rough day?" he asked as she climbed the porch steps. "The Wilson baby has a fever that won't break," she said, sinking onto the bench beside him. "I've been there since before dawn." She rubbed her eyes. "Sometimes I wish I had my father's library here. He collected medical journals from all over the world. There might have been something in them that could help." Without thinking, Beau reached out with his good arm and put his hand over hers. "You're doing everything you can," he said quietly. "That's all anyone could ask." Jessie looked down at their hands, then up at his face. For a moment, something passed between them, a current of understanding, of shared purpose despite their different paths. "Thank you," she said simply. That evening, as they sat by the fire after dinner, Jessie examined Beau's shoulder again. "The healing is progressing well," she told him. "Another week or so, and you should be able to use the arm normally, though you'll need to be careful not to overexert it for at least a month." "A week," Beau repeated, surprised by the twinge of disappointment he felt. A week suddenly seemed like very little time. "Yes," Jessie confirmed, misreading his reaction. "I know that must seem long when you're eager to be on your way, but rushing your recovery would only set you back further." "I'm not in any rush," Beau assured her. "It's just—" He paused, unsure how to express what he was feeling. "You've been more than kind, taking me in like this. I don't want to impose on your hospitality any longer than necessary." Jessie's expression softened. "You're not imposing, Beau. It's nice having company, actually. The cabin gets quiet sometimes." The next morning, Beau woke early, determined to be useful despite his injury. He carefully made his way outside to the woodpile beside the cabin. Using his good arm, he managed to stack several logs in the crook of his injured arm, grimacing at the dull pain but pushing through it. He was just turning to carry the wood inside when Jessie appeared in the doorway, her expression a mixture of exasperation and concern. "What do you think you're doing?" she demanded. "Earning my keep," Beau replied, adjusting his grip on the logs. "I can't just sit around while you do everything." "Put those down before you tear open that wound," Jessie ordered, coming down the steps to confront him. "This isn't about earning your keep. This is about healing properly." "I'm being careful," Beau protested, but even as he spoke, one of the logs slipped, causing him to jerk his injured arm instinctively. Pain shot through his shoulder and he couldn't suppress a gasp. "That's it," Jessie declared, taking the remaining logs from him and setting them down. "Inside." Now, feeling like a scolded child, Beau followed her back into the cabin, where she directed him to sit on the edge of the bed. "Let me see," she said, carefully helping him remove his shirt to examine the shoulder. "You're fortunate. You haven't reopened the wound, but you've strained the surrounding muscles." She looked up at him, her green eyes intense. "I wasn't joking about tying you down if necessary. You are the most stubborn patient I've ever had." "I don't like being helpless," Beau admitted quietly. Jessie's expression softened slightly. "No one does. But accepting help when you need it isn't weakness, Beau, it's common sense." As she rewrapped his bandage, her fingers gently brushing his skin, Beau found himself increasingly aware of her, the scent of lavender that clung to her hair, the small furrow of concentration between her brows, the competent strength in her hands. It had been a long time since he'd allowed himself to notice such things about a woman. "I meant what I said about helping," he said when she'd finished. "There must be something I can do that won't risk this shoulder of mine." Jessie considered for a moment, then nodded. "All right. You can help me prepare some medicines. It's delicate work, but it won't strain your injury if you're careful." For the rest of the morning, Beau sat at Jessie's small table, carefully measuring herbs and powders according to her instructions, grinding them with a mortar and pestle, and filling small paper packets that she would distribute to her patients. "You have steady hands," Jessie observed as she watched him work. "That's rare in a man who's spent his life outdoors. My mother taught me to whittle when I was a boy," Beau explained. "Said it would teach me patience. I'm not sure it took, but the steady hands part stayed with me." "Tell me about your family," Jessie said, sitting across from him as she labeled the packets he'd filled. Beau was quiet for a moment, memories washing over him. "My father had a small ranch in East Texas. Nothing fancy, just enough to get by." He died when I was 15, kicked by a horse he was breaking. After that, it was just my mother and me for a few years." He paused, focusing on the task at hand. "She passed 7 years ago, fever. The local doctor couldn't do anything for her." "I'm sorry," Jessie said softly. Beau nodded his acknowledgement. "What about you? You mentioned your father, but what about the rest of your family?" "It was just my father and me for most of my life," Jessie replied. "My mother died when I was very young. I barely remember her. My father never remarried." He poured himself into his practice and into teaching me everything he knew. A fond smile touched her lips. "He wasn't like other fathers. He never told me there were things I couldn't or shouldn't do because I was a girl. When I said I wanted to be a doctor like him, he simply nodded and started teaching me anatomy the next day." "He sounds like a remarkable man," Beau said. "He was," Jessie agreed. "When he died, I felt adrift. Philadelphia held too many memories. I needed a fresh start, somewhere I could make a difference." She gestured around them. "And so here I am." "Do you ever regret it?" Beau asked. "Coming to a place like this instead of staying in a city where you might have had more resources, more recognition?" Jessie thought for a moment before answering. "Sometimes I miss having other doctors to consult with or access to the latest medical journals and equipment. But no, I don't regret it. Here, I know I'm needed. Every life I save, every child I deliver, every fever I break, it matters in a way that might get lost in a big city practice." Beau nodded, understanding completely. There was something about the West, about these small, struggling communities, that stripped away pretension and revealed what truly mattered. That afternoon, a thunderstorm rolled in from the mountains. Rain lashed against the cabin windows and thunder shook the walls. Beau and Jessie sat by the fire, playing cards to pass the time. "Your deal," Beau said, passing her the deck after she had won her 3rd consecutive hand. "Are all doctors as good at cards as you, or is it just you?" Jessie laughed as she shuffled. "My father believed that card games improved one's powers of observation and memory. We played almost every evening." She dealt with practiced efficiency. "What about you? How did a cowboy learn to play so badly? Now that's just cruel," Beau protested with a grin. "I'll have you know I've won my share of pots in saloons from Texas to Colorado." "Then you must be letting me win," Jessie suggested, her eyes twinkling. "Would I do that?" Beau asked innocently. "Absolutely," Jessie replied without hesitation. Their laughter was interrupted by an urgent pounding on the cabin door. Jessie immediately set down her cards and rose to answer it. A man stood there, drenched from the rain, his expression desperate. "Doc Lawson," he panted. "It's my boy Tommy. His appendix has burst, I think. He's in agony and there's no time to get him to town." "Where is he?" Jessie asked, already moving to gather her medical bag. "Our homestead, about 2 miles east," the man replied. "My wife's with him now." "I'm coming," Jessie assured him. She turned to Beau. "I have to go." "This could take hours. Will you be all right?" "I'll be fine," Beau said. "Go save that boy." Jessie nodded, then hesitated. "There's something I need from you." "Name it," Beau replied without hesitation. "If I'm going to remove an inflamed appendix, I need steady hands to assist me," she explained quickly. "Mr. Foster here can help hold his son still, but I need someone who can handle instruments, someone who won't faint at the sight of blood." Beau understood immediately what she was asking. "My shoulder, you won't need to use it," Jessie assured him. "But I need your help, Beau. That boy's life depends on it." There was no choice to make. "Let me get my coat," he said, rising from his chair. The ride to the Foster homestead was tense and difficult through the driving rain. Beau's shoulder protested every jolt and bump, but he kept pace with Jessie and Mr. Foster, understanding the urgency of their mission. The Foster cabin was small but solid, a typical settler's home. Inside, a woman with a tear-streaked face met them at the door. "He's getting worse, Henry," she told her husband, then looked hopefully at Jessie. "Oh, thank God you're here, Doc." In a small side room, a boy of about 12 lay on a bed, his face contorted with pain. Jessie went to him immediately, her manner calm and reassuring despite the gravity of the situation. "Hello, Tommy," she said gently. "I'm Dr. Lawson. I'm going to help you feel better." As Jessie examined the boy, Beau watched her transformation from the woman he'd been playing cards with to a focused, competent physician. There was no hesitation in her movements, no doubt in her voice as she explained what needed to happen. "His appendix has ruptured," she confirmed to the parents. "I need to operate immediately to remove it and clean out the infection before it spreads further." She looked at them steadily. "I won't lie to you, this is serious, but Tommy is young and strong, and I've performed this surgery before." Mrs. Foster clasped her hands together. "Do whatever you must, doctor," Jessie nodded, then turned to Beau. "I need the kitchen table cleared and scrubbed with boiling water. We'll need every clean cloth in the house and more water boiling to sterilize my instruments." For the next hour, the cabin was a flurry of activity as they prepared for the surgery. Beau followed Jessie's instructions precisely, helping to arrange the makeshift operating area. The rain continued to pound on the roof, occasionally punctuated by thunder, adding to the tension in the small home. Finally, everything was ready. Tommy had been given laudanum to dull the pain and induce unconsciousness. His parents stood nearby, their faces pale but determined. "Mr. and Mrs. Foster, I need you to hold his legs and arms," Jessie instructed. "He may move despite the laudanum, and we can't have that while I'm operating." She turned to Beau. "You'll stand here beside me. I'll tell you exactly what instruments to hand me and when. Can you do that?" Beau looked into her eyes, seeing both the question and the trust there. "Yes," he said simply. What followed was the most intense 2 hours of Beau's life. Jessie worked with incredible precision, her hands steady even as she cut into the boy's abdomen, located the ruptured appendix, and carefully removed it. Beau handed her the instruments she requested, holding retractors when needed and providing clean cloths to absorb blood. Despite the pain in his shoulder and the stress of the situation, he found himself almost mesmerized by Jessie's skill. This was more than training or knowledge, this was a calling, a gift. "Irrigation now," Jessie said, and Beau carefully poured the solution she had prepared to clean out the infection. "Good, now the suture needle." As she stitched the incision closed, Beau could see that the worst was over. Tommy's breathing had steadied, and some of the tension had left Jessie's shoulders. "He's going to be all right," she finally said, straightening up and addressing the anxious parents. "The next 24 hours will be critical to ensure infection doesn't set in, but we've removed the source of the problem." Mrs. Foster broke down in tears of relief, while her husband stood speechless, gratitude etched into every line of his weathered face. "I don't know how to thank you," he finally managed. "Keep him quiet and follow my instructions for his care," Jessie replied. "That will be thanks enough." After giving detailed instructions and preparing medications to control pain and fight infection, Jessie and Beau prepared to leave. The storm had passed and the night sky was clear and star-filled. They rode in silence for a while, both exhausted from the ordeal. Finally, Beau spoke. "What you did back there, it was amazing, Jessie." She glanced over at him, a tired smile on her face. "You weren't so bad yourself for a cowboy with a bad shoulder." "I just handed you things," Beau said. "You saved that boy's life." "We saved him," Jessie corrected gently. "I couldn't have done it alone." When they reached the cabin, both were too tired to do more than tend to their horses and stumble inside. Beau checked the fire while Jessie washed the blood from her hands and face. "You should sleep," Beau told her, noticing the shadows under her eyes. "You've earned it." "So have you," Jessie replied. She hesitated, then added softly, "Thank you, Beau. Not everyone would have done what you did tonight." "I'm glad I could help," he said simply. That night, as Beau lay awake despite his exhaustion, he realized something had shifted between them. In sharing that intense experience, in working together to save a life, they had formed a connection that went beyond patient and doctor, beyond even friendship. The next morning, Beau woke to the smell of coffee and biscuits. He opened his eyes to find Jessie already up and moving about the cabin, humming softly to herself as she worked. "Morning," he said, carefully sitting up. His shoulder was stiff and sore from the exertions of the previous day, but the pain was manageable. Jessie turned, a smile lighting her face. "Good morning. I thought you might sleep longer after last night." "Could say the same about you," Beau replied, noting that despite the early hour, she looked refreshed, the shadows gone from beneath her eyes. You seem chipper for someone who performed surgery by lamplight just hours ago." "Tommy's alive," she said simply, as if that explained everything. And perhaps it did. They ate breakfast together, discussing the surgery and what would happen next for the foster boy. Jessie planned to ride out later that day to check on him. "I'd like to come with you," Beau said. "If you don't mind the company." Jessie studied him for a moment. "Your shoulder is fine," Beau assured her. "A little sore, but nothing serious, and I'd like to see how the boy is doing." After a moment's consideration, Jessie nodded. "All right, we'll go after I see to my patients in town." While Jessie was gone, Beau decided to repay some of her kindness. Though his shoulder limited him, he managed to chop some vegetables for a stew, setting it to simmer slowly over the fire. He also carefully cleaned and oiled her medical bag, which had gotten wet during the previous night's storm. When Jessie returned in the early afternoon, her surprise at his efforts was evident. "You didn't have to do this," she said, inhaling the aroma of the simmering stew. "Wanted to," Beau replied simply. "It's not much compared to what you've done for me, but it's a start." Jessie's smile warmed him more than he cared to admit. "It smells wonderful. I didn't know cowboys could cook." "We can't, generally speaking," Beau admitted with a laugh. "But my mother made sure I wouldn't starve if left to my own devices." "This is about the extent of my culinary skills, though, so don't get too impressed." They rode out to the Foster homestead after eating. Tommy was awake and alert, his color much improved from the previous night. The relief on his parents' faces as Jessie examined him told Beau everything he needed to know about the boy's condition. "He's healing well," Jessie confirmed after checking the incision. "No signs of infection. Keep him in bed for another week, then he can start moving around a bit. No running or heavy lifting for at least a month." "Yes, doctor," Mrs. Foster agreed readily. "We'll see to it." As they prepared to leave, Mr. Foster approached Beau. "My wife and we wanted to thank you both properly," he said. "We don't have much, but we'd like you to have these." He handed Beau a pair of finely tooled leather gloves. "I make these in the winter months when the farm work is slow. They're the best I have." "I can't accept these," Beau began, but Foster shook his head firmly. "Please, our boy's life is worth more than gloves, but it's what we can offer." Understanding the pride behind the gesture, Beau nodded and accepted the gift. "Thank you, they're fine work." On the ride back to Jessie's cabin, they took a longer route, enjoying the late afternoon sunshine and the spectacular view of the mountains in the distance. "Is it always like this?" Beau asked as they let their horses walk side by side along a ridge overlooking a verdant valley. "Like what?" Jessie asked. "This feeling after you save someone, is it always this?" He searched for the word. "Powerful?" Jessie considered the question seriously. "Yes," she finally said. "It never gets old or ordinary. Each life is precious, each one saved is a victory." She glanced at him. "But having someone understand that feeling, share in it, that's rare." Their eyes met, and for a moment the rest of the world seemed to fade away. Beau found himself wondering what it would be like to stay, to be part of Jessie's world permanently. The thought both excited and terrified him. The spell was broken when Pepper snorted and tossed her head, responding to a distant wolf howl. Jessie laughed and patted the mare's neck reassuringly. "We should head back," she said. "It'll be dark soon." That evening, they sat on the porch watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks. The air was cool but pleasant, with the scent of pine and wildflowers drifting on the gentle breeze. "I've been thinking," Beau said after a comfortable silence. "I should try saddling whiskey tomorrow, test this shoulder, see how it's healing." Jessie turned to look at him, her expression unreadable in the fading light. "Are you in such a hurry to leave?" "No," Beau said honestly. "But I can't impose on you forever. You've got your practice, your patience, and I." He trailed off, realizing he wasn't sure how to finish that sentence. "And you have Montana waiting," Jessie supplied, a slight edge to her voice. "Montana or somewhere," Beau agreed, though the thought held less appeal than it once had. "I've been drifting a long time, Jessie. It's what I know." "Is it what you want?" she asked quietly. The question caught him off guard. Was it what he wanted? 2 weeks ago, he wouldn't have hesitated to say yes. Now he wasn't so sure. "I don't know," he admitted. For a long time, staying in one place felt like giving up, like settling for less than what might be over the next hill. But lately, He looked at her, really looked at her, taking in the strength and gentleness in her face. Lately I've been wondering if maybe I've been running from something instead of toward it. Jessie didn't respond immediately. When she did, her voice was soft but steady. There's a place for you here if you wanted it. Silver Creek needs a lawman. The last sheriff moved on months ago and things have been getting rough at times. Beau raised his eyebrows in surprise. Me, a lawman, why not? Jessie challenged. You're steady under pressure, as you proved last night. You're fair-minded, and you know how to handle yourself. I'm not sure the town would want a drifter for a sheriff, Beau pointed out. They might if the right person vouched for you, Jessie replied. My word carries weight in Silver Creek. Beau was silent, considering the unexpected offer. The idea of putting down roots was both appealing and intimidating, and if he were honest with himself, it wasn't just the prospect of a steady job that made him consider it. I'll think about it, he finally said. The next morning, Beau woke determined to test his healing shoulder. After breakfast, he went out to the paddock where Whiskey was grazing. The horse came to him readily, nudging his hand for treats. Sorry, boy, Beau said, stroking the Mustang's neck. No treats today, but how about a ride instead? He fetched his saddle from the small shed where Jessie had stored his gear. It was heavier than he remembered, but he managed to carry it to the paddock fence. Taking a deep breath, he lifted the saddle onto Whiskey's back. Pain shot through his shoulder, but it was less intense than before, more of a warning than a cry of distress. Encouraged, Beau continued, carefully fastening the cinch and adjusting the stirrups. Well, would you look at that? Came Jessie's voice from behind him. A cowboy who actually follows doctor's orders, at least occasionally. Beau turned to find her watching him with an approving smile. The shoulder's much better, he told her. Still sore, but I can use it. Good, Jessie said, coming closer to examine his work. Your technique could use some refinement, but the result is acceptable. Her teasing tone took any sting out of the critique. I thought I might ride into town with you today, Beau suggested. If that's all right, I'd like to see Silver Creek for myself. Something flickered in Jessie's eyes, hope, perhaps, or pleasure at his interest. I'd like that, she said. Give me a few minutes to get ready. Silver Creek proved to be larger than Beau had expected. It wasn't just a cluster of buildings around a crossroads, but a proper town with several streets, a church, a schoolhouse, and the usual assortment of businesses that supported a ranching community. The main street was bustling with activity as they rode in, with wagons and riders moving in both directions. What do you think? Jessie asked as they made their way toward the center of town. It's a real town, Beau observed. Bigger than I expected. It's growing, Jessie agreed. The railroad's planning a spur line through here next year. That'll change things even more. They tied their horses in front of a solid brick building with a sign identifying it as Silver Creek Medical Office. Inside was a well-organized space with a waiting room, an examination room, and a small dispensary. This is where I see most of my patients, Jessie explained. I only use the cabin for overnight cases or when I need to work on medicines without interruption. Throughout the morning, Beau watched as Jessie attended to a steady stream of patients, a rancher with a cut that needed stitching, a young mother with a colicky baby, an elderly man with breathing difficulties. With each one, she was patient, thorough, and kind. During a brief lull, Jessie suggested they get lunch at the hotel dining room. As they walked down the street, Beau noticed how people greeted Jessie with respect and genuine warmth. Doc Lawson, called a heavyset man from the doorway of the general store. Got those supplies you ordered. Want me to bring them over later? That would be wonderful, Mr. Tompkins. Thank you, Jessie replied with a smile. Inside the hotel dining room, they were shown to a table near the window. Several diners nodded in greeting to Jessie, while others cast curious glances at Beau. You weren't exaggerating about your standing in town, Beau commented as they settled at their table. They trust me now, Jessie said, but it wasn't always that way. When I first arrived, there was plenty of skepticism. Some thought a woman doctor was unnatural. Others were sure I'd faint at the first sight of blood. What changed their minds? Beau asked, though he could guess the answer. Results, Jessie said simply. I saved the blacksmith's arm when everyone else said it needed to come off. I delivered twins safely when the mother was in distress. I treated a measles outbreak without losing a single child. She shrugged slightly. Eventually, even the most stubborn had to admit I knew what I was doing. Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of a tall, well-dressed man at their table. There was something proprietary in the way he looked at Jessie that immediately put Beau on alert. "Dr. Lawson," the man said, his voice smooth as silk. "What a pleasant surprise." "Mr. Blackwood," Jessie acknowledged, her tone cooler than Beau had ever heard it. "I don't believe you've met Mr. Mitchell." "Beau, this is Clarence Davidson, owner of the Silver Creek Bank." Beau nodded in greeting, noting the way Davidson's eyes flicked over him dismissively before returning to Jessie. "I was hoping to call on you this evening," Davidson continued as if Beau weren't there. "There's a matter I'd like to discuss." "I'm afraid I'll be busy," Jessie replied. "Perhaps another time." Davidson's smile tightened slightly. "Of course, another time." He tipped his hat. "Enjoy your lunch." As he walked away, Beau raised an eyebrow at Jessie. "Friend of yours?" "Hardly," Jessie replied, her voice low. "Clarence Davidson thinks he owns this town because he owns the bank, and he's decided that he wants to own me as well." "I see," Beau said, understanding immediately. "Has he been?" "Persistent, increasingly so," Jessie admitted. "Nothing improper exactly, just constant invitations, gifts I return, suggestions that my practice would benefit from his protection." She sighed. "It's tiresome more than threatening, but it does make things awkward." "Has anyone suggested he back off?" Beau asked, surprising himself with the protectiveness he felt. Jessie smiled slightly. "Are you volunteering, Mr. Mitchell, if necessary?" Beau replied seriously. "I can handle Clarence Davidson," Jessie assured him, "but thank you for the offer." After lunch, they continued their tour of the town. Beau paid particular attention to the vacant sheriff's office, noting its location and condition. It was a solid building, if a bit neglected in recent months. As they walked, Jessie introduced him to various townspeople. Most were friendly and curious about the stranger accompanying their doctor, though a few, particularly those Beau assumed were Davidson's associates, were more reserved. "What do you think?" Jessie asked as they rode back to her cabin late that afternoon. "About Silver Creek, I mean." Beau considered his answer carefully. "It's a good town," he said finally. "The kind that might be worth putting down roots in for the right person." Jessie's smile told him she understood what he wasn't quite ready to say directly. That evening, as they sat by the fire, Beau made a decision. "I'd like to try for that sheriff's position," he said. "If you still think I'd be suitable." Jessie looked up from her journal, surprise and pleasure evident in her expression. "I do," she said. "More than suitable." "I can't promise I'll stay forever," Beau warned, needing to be honest. "The wanderlust might take me again." "I'm not asking for promises," Jessie replied. "Just a fair chance for Silver Creek to become more than just another town you're passing through." The next day, Beau rode into town alone. Jessie had suggested he meet with Mayor Simmons independently, to establish himself as his own man rather than simply her protégé. The mayor, a former judge with a reputation for fairness, listened attentively as Beau outlined his experience and his interest in the sheriff's position. "Dr. Lawson speaks highly of you," Simmons said when Beau had finished. "And her judgment is not something I take lightly. But being sheriff is more than just wearing a badge and looking imposing, Mr. Mitchell. It requires judgment, restraint, and a commitment to this community." "I understand that, sir," Beau replied. "I'm not claiming to be the perfect candidate, but I know right from wrong. I can handle myself in a fight if necessary, and I'm willing to learn the rest." Simmons studied him thoughtfully. "We've had some trouble lately." "Nothing major yet, but tensions are building. The railroad survey has brought land speculators, and not all of them play by the rules. Ranchers and farmers are at odds over water rights. And Clarence Davidson seems to have his finger in every pie, not always to the benefit of the common folk." "I've noticed some of that," Beau acknowledged. "Would you be willing to start as a deputy?" Simmons asked. "Work with our temporary acting sheriff, Jim Bowen, for a month or so. Let the town get to know you and you get to know the town." It was a reasonable suggestion, and Beau appreciated the caution behind it. "That seems fair," he agreed. "Good," Simmons said, rising and extending his hand. "Report to Bowen tomorrow morning. He'll get you started." As Beau left the mayor's office, he felt a strange mix of excitement and trepidation. For the first time in years, he was choosing to stay, to commit to something beyond the next horizon. It was terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure. When he returned to Jessie's cabin and told her the news, her joy was evident. "A deputy," she exclaimed. "That's wonderful, Beau. Jim Bowen is a good man. He's been filling in as best he can, but he's really the blacksmith, not a lawman. He'll be glad for the help." "It's just a trial," Beau cautioned. "Nothing permanent yet." "It's a start," Jessie replied, her eyes shining, "and a good one." That night, as they sat on the porch watching the stars emerge one by one, Beau found himself thinking about the future not as an abstract concept, but as something tangible, something he might shape rather than simply drift through. "I should find a place in town," he said, thinking aloud. "Can't keep imposing on you, especially now that I'll be working." Jessie was quiet for a moment before responding. "There's a small house behind my office in town," she said. "It came with the property, but I prefer living out here. It's simple, just 2 rooms really, but it's clean and furnished." "You're welcome to use it if you'd like." "I couldn't," Beau began, but Jessie cut him off. "It's sitting empty, Beau. Has been since I bought the place, and it would be convenient for your work." She paused. "Think of it as rent for all the help you've given me with patience." Put that way, it was hard to refuse. "Thank you," Beau said. "That's more than generous." The next morning, Beau saddled whiskey early, pleased that his shoulder gave him only minimal trouble. As he prepared to ride into town to begin his new duties, Jessie came out to see him off, nervous. She asked with a small smile. "A bit," Beau admitted. "It's been a while since I answered to anyone but myself." Jessie stepped closer, adjusting the collar of his shirt with a gentle touch that sent a warm current through him. "You'll do fine," she assured him. "Just be yourself." Before he could respond, she rose on tiptoe and pressed a quick, soft kiss to his cheek. "For luck," she said, stepping back with a blush coloring her freckled skin. Beau was momentarily stunned, the spot where her lips had touched his cheek tingling pleasantly. Thank you," he managed. As he rode toward town, Beau couldn't stop a smile from spreading across his face. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they suddenly seemed far less daunting. Jim Bowen, the acting sheriff, was indeed glad for the help. A burly man with massive forearms and a no-nonsense attitude, he made no secret of the fact that he was eager to return to his blacksmith duties full-time. "Mayor told me you're interested in taking over," he said after showing Beau around the small jailhouse. "Fine by me. I've got more work at the forge than I can handle, what with all the new construction." Over the next few days, Beau fell into a routine. During the day, he patrolled the town, broke up minor disputes, and familiarized himself with Silver Creek's residents and their concerns. In the evenings, he often visited Jessie at her cabin, helping with chores and enjoying her company. As his shoulder continued to heal, Beau found himself able to do more. He chopped firewood for Jessie, repaired loose boards on her porch, and even helped her plant a small vegetable garden behind the cabin. A week after beginning his duties as deputy, Beau encountered his first real test. He was making his afternoon rounds when he heard raised voices coming from the saloon. Inside, he found 2 men, one a local rancher, the other a railroad surveyor, nose to nose in a heated argument. "That's my land you're marking up," the rancher, a man named Ellis, was shouting. "Has been for 15 years. The railroad has legal right-of-way," the surveyor responded, his voice equally loud. "Take it up with the territorial court if you don't like it." Beau moved between them before things could escalate further. "Gentlemen," he said firmly, "this isn't the place to settle property disputes." Ellis turned his anger toward Beau. "Who the hell are you to interfere, Deputy Mitchell?" Beau replied calmly, indicating the badge on his vest. "And I'm not interfering, just suggesting you take this discussion somewhere more appropriate." Mayor Simmons handles property matters on Tuesdays at the town hall. For a tense moment, Beau thought Ellis might take a swing at him, but then the rancher seemed to deflate slightly. "Fine," he muttered, "but this isn't over." As the 2 men separated, the saloon's owner gave Beau an approving nod. "Nicely handled, deputy. Last time those 2 went at it, 3 tables got busted up before Jim could get here." Word of how Beau had diffused the situation spread quickly through the small town. By the time he met Jessie for dinner at her cabin that evening, she had already heard about it. "You're making quite an impression," she told him as they ate. "Mrs. Tompkins at the general store was singing your praises this afternoon, said you were firm but fair, which is high praise from her." Beau shrugged, uncomfortable with the attention. "Just doing the job." "Well, you're doing it well," Jessie said. "Jim told me he's planning to recommend you to Mayor Simmons as his permanent replacement." "Already?" Beau asked, surprised. "It's only been a week." "Jim's eager to get back to his forge full-time," Jessie explained. "And he says you've got a natural way with people. Calm authority, he called it." The praise was gratifying, though Beau still felt like he was playing a role rather than truly being a lawman. But with each passing day, the role became more comfortable, more natural. One afternoon, as Beau was checking the lock on the bank's rear door, a routine security measure Jim had instituted, he encountered Clarence Davidson. "Deputy Mitchell," Davidson said, his tone cordial but his eyes cold. "How conscientious of you to be so thorough in your duties." "Just routine, Mr. Davidson," Beau replied evenly. "Of course." Davidson adjusted his expensive cufflinks. "I understand you've been spending a good deal of time with our town doctor." The implication was clear, and Beau felt his temper rise. He kept his voice level with effort. "Dr. Lawson has been kind enough to let me stay in her guest house while I settle in." "Quite generous of her," Davidson remarked. "She's a remarkable woman." "Too remarkable to waste her talents in a place like Silver Creek indefinitely, don't you think?" "I think Dr. Lawson is capable of deciding what's best for herself," Beau replied. Davidson smiled thinly. "Indeed. Well, good day, Deputy. I'm sure we'll be seeing more of each other." The encounter left Beau unsettled. There was something in Davidson's manner, a confidence bordering on arrogance that suggested he was used to getting his way, and his interest in Jessie clearly went beyond professional respect. That evening, when Beau mentioned the conversation to Jessie, her expression darkened. "Clarence has been trying to convince me to move to Denver for months," she explained. "He's opening a bank there and has offered to set me up in a proper medical practice among the right sort of people." Her tone made it clear what she thought of the suggestion. "And you're not interested?" Beau asked, though he knew the answer. "Not in the slightest," Jessie confirmed. "My place is here. These are my people, my community." She looked at him directly. "My home." The conviction in her voice stirred something in Beau. Home. It was a concept he'd almost forgotten, a luxury he'd convinced himself he didn't need. But watching Jessie, seeing her certainty, her connection to this place and its people, he found himself longing for that same sense of belonging. As the days passed, Beau's life fell into a pleasant rhythm. During the day, he performed his deputy duties, gradually earning the trust and respect of the townspeople. In the evenings, he often spent time with Jessie, either at her cabin or showing her the small improvements he was making to the guest house in town. Their relationship was evolving, becoming deeper and more complex. They hadn't spoken directly about their feelings, but the lingering glances, the casual touches that weren't so casual, the way they sought out each other's company, all spoke of a growing attraction neither was willing to name just yet. One evening, as they walked along the creek near Jessie's cabin, Beau found himself thinking about the strange twist of fate that had brought him here. If he hadn't been shot, if he hadn't been trying to saddle whiskey when Jessie found him, if she hadn't insisted on treating him, how different his life would be now. "Penny for your thoughts," Jessie said, interrupting his reverie. "Just thinking about chance," Beau replied. "How one moment can change everything. Like a bullet in the shoulder," Jessie suggested with a small smile. "Exactly like that," Beau agreed. "If I hadn't been shot, I'd probably be in Montana by now, and I'd be treating Mrs. Wilson's rheumatism instead of having a pleasant walk with a handsome deputy," Jessie added lightly. Beau glanced at her, warmed by the casual compliment. "Do you believe in fate, Jessie? That some things are meant to be?" She considered the question seriously. "I believe in science, in cause and effect, but I also believe there are patterns we can't always see, connections we don't understand." She looked up at him. "Why do you ask?" Beau stopped walking, turning to face her. The setting sun cast a golden glow over her features, highlighting the copper in her hair, the green of her eyes. She was beautiful in a way that went beyond mere appearance, a beauty of spirit, of determination, of compassion. Because meeting you feels like more than chance, he said quietly. It feels like something I've been moving toward my whole life without knowing it. Jessie's eyes widened slightly at his words. For a moment, she seemed at a loss for response. Beau, she finally said, her voice soft. Whatever she was about to say was interrupted by the distant sound of a horse approaching at speed. They both turned to see a rider galloping toward the cabin. Doc Lawson, the man called as he neared. Emergency in town. There's been a shooting at the saloon. Jessie immediately shifted into professional mode. How bad? She asked, already moving toward the cabin to gather her medical bag. Bad, the rider replied grimly. 2 men down, one's the surveyor, Matthews, the other's Ellis, the rancher. Beau felt a cold weight in his stomach. The 2 men he'd separated in the saloon the week before. I'm coming too, he said, moving toward the paddock to saddle whiskey. The ride to town was tense and silent, each lost in their own thoughts. As they approached Silver Creek, Beau could see a crowd gathered outside the saloon. Make way for the doctor, he called as they dismounted. The crowd parted, revealing Jim Bowen standing guard at the saloon doors. Inside, Jim directed them. Ellis shot Matthews, then someone else shot Ellis. It's a mess. Inside, the scene was grim. Matthews, the surveyor, lay on the floor, blood pooling beneath him from a chest wound. Ellis was slumped across a table, a bullet hole in his back. Jessie immediately went to Matthews, quickly assessing his condition. He's alive, but barely, she announced. I need to operate immediately. Help me get him to my office. As several men carefully lifted the injured surveyor, Jessie turned to Ellis. After a brief examination, she shook her head. He's gone. The bullet hit his heart. Beau surveyed the chaotic scene, aware that as deputy, it was his responsibility to restore order and determine what had happened. Everyone stay where you are, he commanded. I need statements from all of you. Over the next hour, as Jessie worked to save Matthews, Beau pieced together the events. Ellis had come into the saloon already drunk and angry. When he saw Matthews at the bar, he started shouting about the railroad survey again. Before anyone could intervene, he'd drawn his gun and shot the surveyor. And then, Beau pressed the barkeeper who had witnessed the entire incident. Then all hell broke loose, the man replied. People diving for cover, women screaming. Ellis was standing over Matthews, still pointing his gun like he might shoot him again. That's when the second shot came. From where? Beau asked. The barkeeper hesitated. It all happened so fast, but I think it came from near the door, where Davidson was standing. Clarence Davidson, Beau clarified, his suspicion rising. Yes, sir. He'd been having a quiet drink in the corner. When the shooting started, he moved toward the door like everyone else. But then, the barkeeper shook his head. I can't say for certain it was him. There were a lot of people moving around. Beau thanked the man and continued his investigation, speaking to everyone who had been present. Most accounts were similar: chaos after the first shot, confusion about the second. But 3 witnesses placed Davidson near the position from which the fatal shot had come, and one thought he'd seen a gun in the banker's hand. By the time Beau had finished gathering statements, Jessie emerged from her office, looking exhausted but relieved. Matthews will live, she announced. The bullet missed his heart by inches. He's lost a lot of blood, but he's strong. With proper care, he should recover. The news spread quickly through the crowd that had remained gathered outside. Beau approached Jessie, speaking low enough that only she could hear. I need to talk to you about Davidson, he said. Several witnesses place him near where the second shot came from. Jessie's expression turned serious. You think he shot Ellis? It's looking that way, Beau confirmed. But I need more evidence before I can make an arrest. A banker shooting a rancher, that's going to cause an uproar no matter what the circumstances. What are you going to do? Jessie asked. Talk to Davidson, Beau replied. See what he has to say. Will you be all right here? Jessie nodded. I'll stay with Matthews. He'll need monitoring through the night. Beau found Davidson at the bank despite the late hour. The banker was in his office, a glass of whiskey on the desk in front of him. Deputy Mitchell, he said as Beau entered. I presume you're here about the unfortunate incident at the saloon. I am, Beau confirmed, studying Davidson's face for any sign of guilt or anxiety. The man appeared perfectly composed. Several witnesses place you near the door when the second shot was fired. I was trying to leave like any sensible person, Davidson replied smoothly. It was chaos in there after Ellis shot the surveyor. Did you see who fired the second shot? Beau asked directly. Davidson's expression didn't change. I'm afraid not. As I said, it was chaotic. Mr. Davidson, Beau said, deciding on a direct approach, I have a witness who believes they saw a gun in your hand. For just a moment, something flickered in Davidson's eyes, concern, perhaps, or calculation, but his voice remained steady. Your witness is mistaken, Deputy. I don't carry a firearm, never have. Would you object to me searching your office? Beau asked, just to be thorough in my investigation. Now Davidson's composure did slip just slightly. I would indeed object. This is a place of business, not a crime scene. If you want to search these premises, you'll need proper authorization. Beau nodded, having expected the response. I'll speak with Mayor Simmons about that. In the meantime, I'd appreciate it if you remained in town. We may have more questions. Davidson's smile was cold. I have no plans to travel, Deputy. Silver Creek is my home. As Beau left the bank, he was troubled by the conversation. Davidson was clearly hiding something, but without more evidence, Beau couldn't justify an arrest or a search. He needed to build a stronger case. Over the next few days, Beau continued his investigation, interviewing and re-interviewing witnesses, searching for the weapon that had been used to kill Ellis. Meanwhile, Jessie was occupied with Matthew's care, spending long hours at her office in town where the injured surveyor was recovering. They saw less of each other than had become their habit, but when they did meet, their conversations inevitably turned to the shooting and Davidson's possible involvement. Why would he do it? Jessie wondered as they shared a late supper at her cabin 4 days after the incident. Davidson and Ellis weren't friends, but they weren't enemies either, as far as I know. I've been asking around, Beau said. Turns out Davidson has been buying up land along the proposed railroad route. Ellis's ranch includes a pass that the railroad surveyors marked as ideal for a station stop. Jessie's eyes widened with understanding, and Ellis was fighting the survey, refusing to cooperate. Exactly, Beau confirmed. With Ellis gone, his widow might be more amenable to selling, especially if Davidson offers to help with the ranch's debts. That's cold-blooded, Jessie said, shaking her head in disgust. If he did it, Beau cautioned. We still don't have proof. The proof came the next day in an unexpected form. Beau was in the sheriff's office when a young boy arrived, out of breath from running. Deputy Mitchell, the boy panted. Pa sent me. He found something when he was fishing in the creek behind the saloon. The something turned out to be a Derringer pistol, small enough to be easily concealed but powerful enough to be lethal at close range. It had been tossed into the creek, presumably by the shooter after the chaos of the saloon. Beau carefully dried and examined the weapon. It was expensive, with pearl inlays on the grip and fine engraving on the barrel. Not the kind of gun a common cowhand or laborer would carry. Your pa did the right thing bringing this in, Beau told the boy, pressing a coin into his hand. Tell him thank you from me. With the weapon recovered, Beau's next step was clear. He needed to connect it to Davidson. He decided to visit the gunsmith, an older man named Harlow who had been in Silver Creek since its founding. Fine piece, Harlow commented, examining the Derringer. Custom work, not something you see often out here. He pointed to a small mark on the underside of the barrel. That's Simon Parker's mark. He's a gunsmith in Denver, makes weapons for wealthy clients. Would you have any record of who might have purchased this? Beau asked. Harlow shook his head. Not me, but Parker keeps detailed records. He's proud of his work, likes to know where each piece ends up. The old gunsmith looked at Beau shrewdly. This have something to do with the shooting at the saloon? I can't say just yet, Beau replied, but thank you for the information. It's very helpful. Beau's next stop was the telegraph office, where he sent a message to Simon Parker in Denver, inquiring about the Derringer. The response wouldn't come until the following day at the earliest, so Beau continued gathering what evidence he could. That evening, he visited Jessie at her office to check on Matthews and update her on the investigation. The surveyor's improving, Jessie told him as they stood in her small dispensary, away from the patient's hearing. He was lucid today, even sat up for a short while. "Has he said anything about the shooting?" Beau asked. "Not much," Jessie replied. "He remembers Ellis confronting him, remembers the first shot, then nothing until he woke up here." She hesitated, but he did say something interesting about Davidson. Beau's interest sharpened. "What's that?" Apparently, Davidson had approached him privately about altering the survey report to favor certain properties ones Davidson had invested in. Matthews refused. Jessie's expression was troubled. If that's true, Davidson had reason to want both Ellis and Matthews out of the way. "But Ellis shot Matthews," Beau pointed out. "Yes, but Davidson couldn't have known that would happen," Jessie reasoned. "Maybe he planned to deal with both of them separately, and Ellis's actions just gave him the perfect opportunity to eliminate one problem while appearing to defend the other." It was a disturbing theory, but it fit the facts as they knew them. Beau shared what he had learned about the Derringer and his message to the gunsmith in Denver. "If we can prove the gun belongs to Davidson," he said, "combined with the witness statements and Matthews' information about Davidson trying to influence the survey, we'll have enough for an arrest." The telegraph from Denver arrived the next morning. Beau read it with grim satisfaction. "Derringer custom-made for C. Davidson stop sold and delivered June last year. Stop distinctive pearl inlay customers specifications. Stop it was the evidence he needed." Beau immediately went to Mayor Simmons' office to obtain authorization to arrest Davidson and search his home and office. "This is serious business," Simmons cautioned after reviewing the evidence Beau presented. "Davidson has powerful friends in the territorial government. He shot a man in cold blood," Beau replied firmly. "Those friends can't protect him from that, not with this evidence." Simmons nodded, his expression resolute. "You're right. Do what needs to be done, Deputy. You have my full support." With the mayor's authorization in hand, Beau assembled a small group to assist with the arrest Jim Bowen, who still officially held the sheriff's position, and two trusted townsmen who had been deputized for the occasion. They found Davidson at the bank, reviewing ledgers with his clerk. He looked up with mild annoyance when Beau entered, flanked by the others. "This is becoming a habit, Deputy Mitchell," he said. "I'm a busy man." "Clarence Davidson," Beau said formally, "I'm placing you under arrest for the murder of Thomas Ellis." Davidson's face drained of color, but he quickly recovered his composure. "This is absurd. I've already told you I wasn't involved." "We found the Derringer you threw in the creek," Beau informed him. "Simon Parker in Denver confirms it was made specifically for you. We have witnesses who place you at the scene, and we know about your attempt to bribe Matthews to alter the railroad survey." For a long moment, Davidson simply stared at Beau, as if measuring his options. Then, with a sudden movement, he reached for a drawer in his desk. "Don't," Beau warned, his hand moving to his own weapon. Davidson froze, then slowly raised his hands. "This is a mistake," he said, his voice tight with controlled fury. "I was defending the surveyor. Ellis had already shot one man and might have shot others." "That's for a court to decide," Beau replied, unmoved. "Turn around and place your hands behind your back." As they led Davidson out of the bank and across the street to the jailhouse, a crowd began to gather. News of the banker's arrest spread through Silver Creek like wildfire. By the time they had secured Davidson in a cell, it seemed half the town was outside, buzzing with speculation and surprise. Jessie arrived shortly after, having heard the news from a patient. "You arrested him," she said as she entered the jailhouse, her expression a mix of relief and concern. "The evidence was clear," Beau replied. "The circuit judge will be here in 2 weeks. Until then, Davidson will remain in custody." In the days that followed, more details emerged that solidified the case against Davidson. His clerk, freed from fear of his employer, revealed ledgers showing extensive land purchases along the railroad route, purchases made through intermediaries to hide Davidson's involvement. Matthews, continuing to recover under Jessie's care, provided a full statement about Davidson's attempt to bribe him. The town of Silver Creek was shaken by the revelations, but also relieved that justice was being served. Mayor Simmons, impressed by Beau's handling of the case, officially offered him the position of sheriff once Jim Bowen stepped down. "You've proven yourself," Simmons told him. The town trusts you, and so do I. Beau accepted the position with a sense of both pride and responsibility. It was strange to think that just weeks ago, he had been a drifter with no fixed destination, no plans beyond the next town or job. Now he was putting down roots, accepting a position of trust in a community that was beginning to feel like home. The most significant change, however, was in his relationship with Jessie. The intensity of the case and its aftermath had brought them closer, eliminating the last barriers of hesitation between them. One evening, about a week after Davidson's arrest, Beau rode out to Jessie's cabin. He found her on the porch, watching the sunset with a cup of tea in her hands. "Sheriff Mitchell," she greeted him with a warm smile. "Or is it still deputy until the official ceremony?" "Deputy for a few more days," Beau replied, settling beside her on the porch step. "But I didn't come out here to talk about that." Jessie set down her cup, turning to face him. "What did you come to talk about?" Beau took a deep breath, suddenly nervous in a way he hadn't been since he was a young man courting his first sweetheart. "About us," he said. "About what's been happening between us." "And what is that exactly?" Jessie asked, her voice soft but direct. "I think you know," Beau replied. "I've been falling in love with you, Jessie Lawson. Have been since the day you found me trying to saddle whiskey with a bullet in my shoulder and told me you'd tie me down if I didn't rest." A blush rose in Jessie's cheeks, but her eyes remained steady on his. "I've been falling in love with you too," she admitted, "though I tried not to at first. I thought you'd be moving on as soon as your shoulder healed." "I thought so too," Beau said with a small smile. "Turns out I found something here worth staying for. Several things, actually." He reached out, gently taking her hand in his. "I can't promise I'll be perfect at this, at staying in one place, at being sheriff, at being the man you deserve. But I promise I'll try my best every day." Jessie's free hand came up to touch his cheek, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "That's all anyone can promise," she said. "And it's enough for me." Beau leaned forward, and Jessie met him halfway. Their first real kiss was gentle but charged with all the emotion that had been building between them for weeks: tenderness, respect, desire, and the beginning of a deep and abiding love. When they finally parted, Beau rested his forehead against hers. "I should have done that a long time ago," he murmured. "Better late than never, Sheriff," Jessie replied with a smile. In the weeks and months that followed, Beau and Jessie's relationship blossomed in the open. The town of Silver Creek seemed unsurprised by the development. Many had apparently seen it coming long before they had acknowledged it themselves. Clarence Davidson was tried and convicted of murder, sentenced to 20 years in the territorial prison. The railroad construction proceeded as planned, bringing new growth and prosperity to Silver Creek. Beau proved himself a fair and effective sheriff, earning the respect of even those who had initially been skeptical of the former drifter. As for Jessie, her medical practice thrived. With Matthew's testimony about her skill and dedication spreading along the railroad line, she began to receive patients from neighboring communities, some traveling considerable distances to consult the lady doctor of Silver Creek. 6 months after his appointment as sheriff, Beau proposed properly, with a ring he'd saved for weeks to purchase. They were married in the town church on a perfect spring day, with what seemed like all of Silver Creek in attendance. After the ceremony, as they greeted their well-wishers, Mayor Simmons approached them with a broad smile. "I've been saying it for months," he told them, "but it bears repeating. Silver Creek is lucky to have you both." "I think we're the lucky ones," Beau replied, his arm around his new wife's waist. Later that evening, as they prepared to depart for a short honeymoon in Denver, Beau helped Jessie into the waiting carriage. His shoulder, long healed now, gave only the faintest twinge as he lifted her, a reminder of the injury that had changed the course of his life. "What are you thinking?" Jessie asked, noticing his momentary reflection. "Just that sometimes the worst moments lead to the best," he replied, settling beside her. "If I hadn't been shot, if you hadn't found me trying to saddle whiskey with a bad shoulder, if I hadn't threatened to tie you down," Jessie added with a laugh. "Exactly," Beau agreed, taking her hand in his. "It's strange how life works out." "Not strange," Jessie corrected gently. "Just right." As the carriage pulled away from Silver Creek, Beau Mitchell looked ahead to the future he would build with the remarkable woman beside him, a future he had never imagined for himself, but which now seemed as natural and necessary as breathing. The endless horizon that had once called to him still stretched before them, but now it promised not escape or restless wandering, but a journey they would take together, one day at a time, in the place they both called home.